So I said last week after Zohran Mamdani endorsed Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House that I was going to be watching to see how left media reacted to that. I'm talking about all the very prominent left-leaning outlets and creators like The Majority Report. And I regret to inform everybody that no, they have not condemned it. They have not criticized him for it. They didn't call him out for it. In fact, they interviewed him right around Thanksgiving, and they didn't even ask him about it. Like, really, actually. They asked him about his decision to discourage a primary challenge against Jeffries, but they did not ask him about his affirmative endorsement, which is very different than just discouraging somebody from primarying them. And there were a few things that really upset me about this, but two of them being the Majority Report has frequently called out the Democratic Party for being useless, feckless fucks, for being corrupt, for supporting genocide, for being lapdogs to the corporate class, and on and on and on. And there was a video that came out weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, where both of them are dunking on Hakeem Jeffries the entire time for what an incompetent fraud he is, what a bad politician he is, and what a clown he is for refusing to say that Zohran Mamdani would be the future of the party. Listen to what Emma Vigeland says about this before I show you what she said after interviewing Zohran.
We're always waiting for it. But like, this is also why I just bring up, the difference in between a communicator like this and someone like Jeffries or Schumer is that we are in a new era in terms of like what is required of leadership with the Democratic Party, as the base is screaming and saying, reject these corporate interests, become a fighting party. How do you become a fighting party? Well, you have to cut those chains off, release yourself from the corporate interests that are bipartisan with the Republicans and the Democrats, and return to a party that is for the grassroots. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but when you have communicators that are able to generate enthusiasm about the party, then you get actually people involved. There's people power, and you can have a more grassroots fundraising apparatus that is less reliant on that. And that's part of the fight that we're talking about here, which is like the old guard doesn't want to let go of that, but it's also kneecapping the party from being an effective opposition.
See, and I know that there's dozens and dozens of clips like that because I listened to the Majority Report. So I saw them saying all this, which is why it was particularly disheartening seeing that interview and their reaction to the interview afterward. Because it's not like Emma Vigeland doesn't fully understand that. She just laid out part of the issue with it. And she also laid out what happens when you actually have an effective communicator inspiring people. It does affect the grassroots, and it does affect the way they can fundraise. And I can tell you, after this little shenanigan, a lot of people are feeling pretty deflated. On top of that, I like when she goes, and that's why we have to fight. What fight? You're not putting up a fight. You wouldn't even ask him about it. At the beginning of that clip, she literally points out that the Democratic base is demanding a party that actually has a fucking backbone, a party that actually is willing to stand up against the ruling class and corporate interests and genocide and wants real leadership, not the clowns like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. She says it. But then when that is put to the test and Zohran Mamdani comes out and endorses Hakeem Jeffries for speaker, affirmatively endorses him, affirmatively endorses the guy that wouldn't even utter his name. They not only did not ask him about that when they interviewed him, and yes, it was after he said it, because I saw some people trying to cope being like, oh, well, they didn't ask him because the interview hadn't happened yet. Bullshit. That interview happened about 5 days ago. He was interviewed by Kirsten Welker on the 23rd. That was a choice not to ask him about that. And this is what she said after the interview.
I want to correct myself. I think, we were all, there was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to AOC first coming out, and then Zohran then later kind of, saying that they were not going to be supportive of Chiase.
And leaking out, apparently.
Yeah, and then there was Zohran at the DSA meeting that he kind of touched on there, where he spoke his piece about why he it seems to be the case that Jeffries basically said, I won't get in your way as long as you don't endorse a primary challenge against me. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Jeffries has to remain leader of the Democrats in the House. He could retain his seat. I think it's very difficult to dislodge him, though. But if there's a leadership change in the Senate, it makes those conversations easier. And then having that answer from Zohran right off the rip, just about how he's not ruling out supporting other primary challenges, that's it. That's basically the answer there. AOC and Zohran stood down on Jeffries in particular, and then they're still saying game on, I think, for Dan Goldman's district and other districts across the city. That's pretty good.
What you just saw there was at best bullshit, cope, and rationalization, and at worst, straight up manipulation and gaslighting. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt because, as I said, I've been listening to the Majority Report for a long time and I like Emma. So I'll just go ahead and believe, for the sake of this argument, that this is just cope and rationalization and not gaslighting and manipulation. But either way, it's really unacceptable. Like, do you guys think we haven't been watching over the last year? Like, we haven't seen segment after segment after segment of you guys talking about the need for reform in the Democratic Party and how the base is going to be setting standards and demanding better leadership. What do you think it sends, the message that it sends when you do that? Really, what do you think it sends? The message that you are sending as a leader in the progressive movement, in the media, as a journalist, the message that you are sending to all of those voters who do want better, who are demanding better, is that actually it's already okay to stand down. And I said it before and I'll fucking say it again. This is not just about him discouraging Chiose from primarying Jeffries. This was about him going out of his way to affirmatively endorse Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker of the House should the Democrats take back the House. That is insane. That is unacceptable, because what you are saying with that endorsement is that you affirm everything that he has done. You affirm the disastrous way that he handled the government shutdown, the lies that he told, the refusal to stand up for Trump, the refusal to call for Chuck Schumer to step down. You are affirming his cowardice and silence on the coup that Trump is trying to foment in Venezuela. You are affirming the bullshit "I condemn socialism" resolution he signed on to. You affirm his genocide stance and the fact that he takes so much money from AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. You are affirming all of that by endorsing him. And you guys are getting on here every single day talking about how you agree that the Democrats need to be bold and they need to have vision and they need to fight and they need new leadership and the base is demanding it. And then you turn around and you won't even criticize Zohran Mamdani for that very unacceptable endorsement. And the problem with that, with you guys not saying anything, is that if the people that support Zohran, whether it's people like me who supported him, everyday New Yorkers, or people like you who have massive platforms and audiences that trust you and that trust what you have to say, it is wildly irresponsible and straight up disrespectful to your audience and everybody in the progressive left movement to sit back and make excuses for him endorsing Jeffrey. And it's actually depressing how many people are not speaking out against this. How many people are just making excuses about it, whether it's people in your audience or people that are media figures and journalists and prominent people with big platforms in the progressive movement. It is depressing how silent you all are being, because it's like, I thought we were all on the same page, okay? I thought that it was fuck AIPAC, that it was fuck the Israeli lobby, that you're not taking any money from them and getting support from us. That is fuck the current state of the Democratic Party, fuck Hakeem Jeffries, fuck Chuck Schumer, and the fucking horses that they rode in on. And people are going to start to have some standards here, especially since those same leaders in the Democratic Party have been the ones to literally help drive us into the fucking ditch that we're in as a country now. And we all agree that those people that have empowered the fascists should not be rewarded with leadership until Zohran Mamdani comes out and says, actually, I think he should be rewarded with leadership, and then you guys don't say shit. I thought we were all on the same page. Apparently not, because I have not seen really anybody who is prominent in progressive media speak out against that. No, instead, you have the Majority Report and others getting on here and making excuses for what they just said themselves a couple weeks ago was a feckless, incompetent, unacceptable person to have as leader. And then she's really sitting there talking about how we need to fight the Democratic establishment. Like, bro, you won't even broach the subject to Zohran Mamdani about him endorsing that contemptible AIPAC shill. But we're supposed to believe that you guys are about taking it on. I don't think you guys realize how much damage this is doing. Okay, there's a lot of cope and a lot of denial from a lot of the progressives and people who supported Zohran that this is doing a lot of damage. And it's not okay. It was never okay, and it's not going to be okay in the future. And the next time that hack Hakeem Jeffries does some fucked up shit to help Trump or to undermine progressives, it's going to be a lot harder for you guys to jump on here and say shit about that when you wouldn't say shit to Zohran Mamdani. And it is particularly disappointing to see progressive media refuse to hold Zohran Mamdani accountable for this, because they are the only ones that can. If they're not going to, if we're not going to, then who is?